I put up a poll a few days ago to get your take on which natural stone is of most interest to you, or what you would consider putting in your kitchen. Now, apparently I really wanted people to choose marble because I stuck it in there twice accidentally, but we'll get to that in a second. In that poll, quartzite has taken a commanding lead overall, with I think about 60% the last time I looked going that route. Now, that second marble choice that I put in there, well, that was supposed to be soapstone, and that's the focus of today's chat. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today is all about those soapstone countertops. What exactly they are, their pros, their cons. We're going to touch on some of the maintenance required if you have them in your kitchen, their environmental impact, and whether or not they might be right for you. So what exactly is soapstone? Well, first of all, soapstone, or steatite as it's also known, is a metamorphic rock that contains the mineral talc. Yes, talc as in talcum powder. Interestingly, this mineral mix of soapstone and the fact that it contains a bunch of talc has been one of the reasons why sculptors have loved this stone for centuries. So the level of talc found within different slabs of soapstone, if you will, is what leads to its hardness or softness. But we're going to dig a little bit more into that later on. Overall, soapstone has a relatively warm aesthetic, providing a very distinctive characteristic to the space. Slabs are typically on the darker end of the spectrum, giving it a limited range when it comes to appearance. However, what it lacks in terms of choice, it more than makes up for in natural beauty. In fact, this beauty is what provides that truly natural stone look that many people are after for their kitchens. So if soapstone is loved by sculptors, is it durable? Well, let's start out by discussing whether or not it's hard by bringing up that Mohs scale from last week. The Mohs scale, I think that's how it's pronounced, someone correct me if I'm wrong, ranks minerals on their hardness from 1 to 10. So for example, last week we found out that quartz sits roughly at a 7, which is incredibly durable, harder than glass, trailing only some gemstones. Well, soapstone doesn't fare quite so well here. As I said earlier, a large component of soapstone is talc, and talc measures at a 1 on the Mohs scale, making it the softest mineral out there. Now, soapstone slabs range anywhere from 30 to 80% talc, making them hard at that 30% end or really, really soft up at that 80% end. When it comes to your kitchen countertops though, most of them sit right around that 50% mark. Because soapstone countertops are not 100% talc, they do sit a little bit higher on the Mohs scale, somewhere around that 2.5 to 3.5 mark. Now, this varying level of hardness comes down to the level of talc or the quantity of talc present within the stone, as well as the makeup of the remaining minerals. The remaining minerals are mostly magnesite, quartz, chlorite, some carbonates, and a whole bunch of other geological groups that we really don't need to dig into. However, it isn't all bad news on the durability front. Yes, they are soft and will scratch and ding up a little bit easier than some other natural stones. However, it is also what prevents them from easily cracking. So overall, this gives soapstone countertops a level of durability a little bit higher than some other natural stones like marble. That seems like a perfect point to jump into some of the pros of soapstone countertops. So let's start off with, they resist cracking. I mean, that seems like a pro to me. And it is definitely something that gives them a little bit of an edge over some of the other natural stones we're going to discuss in the next few weeks. Soapstone is non-porous. Yes, you heard that right. Soapstone, a natural stone, is non-porous. That means it doesn't require any chemical sealing throughout its lifespan. That lack of porosity also means it doesn't react to acidic substances if they spill, like wine or coffee or vinegars or citrus, meaning you can breathe a little bit easier when you're working in your kitchens. In fact, this is why you'll find soapstone in scientific laboratories all over the world, because it can resist those chemicals, those spills, those stains that might occur with some other materials. Soapstone is also heat resistant, meaning if you like to grab hot items out of your oven or a hot pot off your cooktop and place it right on your countertop, you can. This is also what gives soapstone a massive advantage over quartz. You don't need to worry about any discoloration or any cracking when those hot items are placed down on your countertops. Soapstone looks beautiful. When it comes down to pure aesthetics, that natural, dark, moody look that is provided by soapstone is difficult to match with another material. Soapstone can also be used to create a completely seamless design. Well, sort of. We'll touch on this when it comes to the cons. Because soapstone is soft and easy to carve, it can be used for everything from countertops to drain boards to sinks, providing a completely seamless look, which is something you might be after for your space. And finally, I'm also going to throw installation under the pro category. Because of its softness, soapstone can be cut with a regular circular saw equipped with a diamond blade. Now, if you're after a straight cut, I definitely recommend using some sort of straight edge. And finally, to finish off your countertop, you can radius the edges using your router, again, as long as it's equipped with a diamond blade. Therefore, if you've got some general carpentry skills, you might be able to install these countertops. While there are many positives when it comes to soapstone countertops, it is not without its downsides. And first of all, the first downside, it's soft. Now you might be thinking, hey, that was one of the reasons or led to a whole bunch of reasons under the pro category. Well, it's also a negative of the material, because its softness is what leads to a lot of dings, scratches, and dents. Drop a can of corn or beans out of your cabinet and it's probably going to lead to a ding or a nick. Drop a cast iron plate a little too hard and you're probably going to lead to a ding. I've even seen cases where sliding plates or Pyrex dishes across the surface has left what I would call pretty significant scratches. Now I should also note, this is fixable. The scratches and dings can be sanded out with a light sanding, taking the soapstone back to its more natural state. However, if you aren't sanding your entire kitchen countertops down, it can lead to some unevenly matched areas. Soapstone will develop a patina. Now, I really wasn't sure where to include this, whether it's a pro or a con really comes down to each individual person. While some people love that their countertops took on a patina and developed over time, others found it rather unsightly. Certain areas are going to darken more than others, and this typically comes down to the areas that are used the most. So, while some do love it, and it is definitely a pro for some people, that can be a massive con for others, and this variability is what led me to stick it under the cons heading. So just know that I do this with an asterisk, and for those of you who have soapstone as your current kitchen countertops, leave us a comment down below on your personal experience. The more information our community can gain, the better decisions we can make. Oily substances can leave marks. Yes, soapstone is non-porous, however, oily substances will darken the stone overall. This is why some distributors or installers will recommend that you spread a mineral oil across the entire surface of your soapstone, preventing those uneven dark spots from appearing. However, we'll dig a little bit more into this when we get to maintenance a little later on. Then we have the texture of soapstone. It has a leathery, soap-like feel, hence the name. Now, again, this is sort of one with an asterisk because it really comes down to personal choice. However, that texture, that non-slick surface is definitely something you should be aware of before you go all out and place them everywhere in your kitchens. Up next, we have slab size. Now, I did mention earlier on under the pros how we can create a near seamless design, integrating our countertops, our drain board, our sink all into one. However, this is more for a standalone sink section within our kitchens. If it is grouped into a larger shape like an L shape or a U-shaped kitchen, you may wind up with seams. And although this is changing, it has been difficult to find large slabs of soapstone in the past. Therefore, you might wind up with seams in areas you didn't quite expect to have one, like a large kitchen island. And finally, we have cost. Just like quartz countertops that we talked about last week, they definitely come at the pricier end of the spectrum when it comes to countertops. Now, interestingly, when I reached out to some of the local installers I deal with here, none of them would really give me an accurate number on price, all stating that it came down to where the soapstone came from and the content of talc found within it. Basically, the harder the stone, the more expensive it becomes. However, from my conversations and a little bit of Googling, it seems as though soapstone falls somewhere in the $40 to $100 US per square foot, with costs roughly doubling for professional installation. Now, this again is going to come down to where that stone is sourced, who is installing it, and where exactly you live. Alrighty, let's dive into maintenance. If you were hoping for a completely maintenance-free, well, this might not be the stone for you. Well, actually, if you don't mind scratches, dings, dents, and the surface developing a patina over time, it might be the perfect stone for you. Heck, that might actually be what draws you into soapstone in the first place. The most common maintenance will come in the form of applying a mineral oil across your countertops every few months to maintain that rich, dark look. The downside to this is you're left with a somewhat oily feeling residue or texture to the countertop for several months, Remember, this countertop is non-porous, so that oil doesn't really sink in. So just a recap or a word of caution if you are going this route, remember that they are going to wear and tear a little unevenly, a patina is going to develop over time, and if you don't like it, you probably will have to do some regular maintenance, regular oilings to keep that dark, natural look. So after all of that, is soapstone environmentally friendly? Is our earth thanking us for choosing soapstone over another product? Overall, I would say yes, and my research seems to point that direction as well. So there are a few points we can consider. First of all, there are domestic quarries, both in the US and Canada, pulling soapstone out of the earth. This means we can reduce our overall carbon footprint if we choose a domestic source. Soapstone is often quarried in open pit quarries and uses equipment that doesn't require blasting or chemicals to excavate. Another plus. As I mentioned earlier, soapstone is non-porous and doesn't require any harsh chemicals to seal or clean, reducing some of the chemicals we need to use in our home that ultimately do wind up finding their way into our ecosystem. Soapstone has an incredibly long lifespan, and you might even say several lifespans. You're more than likely to get several decades out of it in your kitchens. However, once you're no longer happy with it there, or you might want to replace it with something different, that countertop can be completely recycled or repurposed into other materials. I've seen soapstone countertops recycled into pizza stones, coasters, even whiskey rocks, giving them a whole new lease on life. So overall, soapstone is natural, it's sustainable, it's recyclable, essentially allowing it to last forever in one form or another. And finally, the biggest question of the bunch, are soapstone countertops right for you? Well, as I said last week, only you can really answer that question. So take a hard look at your lifestyle, how you use your kitchen, and what you expect out of your countertops. If you love the idea of countertops taking on a bit of a life of their own, developing that patina over time, and maybe even representing the fact that you use your kitchen, well, they might be perfect for you. However, if you're after a surface that looks near identical 5, 10, or even 15 years down the road, well, it might not be the best option. So, here are my 2 cents, why I didn't use it in my kitchen, and well, as always, take this with a grain of salt because, well, you are you and not me. With 2 little kids at that time, 3 now, I didn't want to think about how little hands might impact our countertops. When they needed to get their own water glass out of the cabinet and it accidentally fell, I like knowing that my countertops went unscathed. Our kids love to be involved in the kitchen, whether it's breakfast on the weekends or some weeknight dinners, and I'm really happy that I don't need to worry about how our countertops are going to fare. And finally, I can live with their texture and I absolutely love their aesthetic, just not for my home. Our house is a 100-year-old farmhouse with a rather small kitchen, and I'm not sure that really dark and moody countertop fits into the overall aesthetic. So maybe one day I'll wind up with soapstone countertops in our kitchen. Maybe one day we'll tear this place down and build our dream home in its place. However, who knows what the future might hold, and we'll make those decisions when we cross that bridge. Thank you all for joining me today in this 3rd video of our countertop series. Maybe you've added soapstone to your list, or maybe you've scratched it off. Either way, hopefully you learned something new. If you missed either of our first 2 videos, I'll throw a link to them there or maybe there so you can get caught back up. And as always, I look forward to seeing all of your smiling faces next week when we dive into Quartzite.